Welcome to RuralStrong, where we talk real challenges and bold solutions in rural economic development. I'm your host, Joe Barker. Let's get into it. Welcome to RuralStrong. This is your podcast host, Joe Barker, and we're coming to you today from the Southwest Tennessee Development District podcast studio in beautiful downtown Jackson, Tennessee. And our guest today is a great friend of mine and probably one of the most recognizable names in economic development, not only in the Southeast, but across the country. It's my friend Bryan Daniels, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Bryan. He's got a very interesting background, but the main thing is he's been very successful in his profession. Bryan began his career with the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development, which is based in Nashville. And then from there, from 2001 through 2010, Bryan accepted the role of Executive Vice President under the Blount Partnership. Bryan managed Blount County, the cities of Maryville, and Alcoa's economic development efforts. And then in 2010, Bryan was named President and CEO of the Blount Partnership. The partnership is comprised of the Blount County Chamber of Commerce, Blount County Economic Development Board, the Smokey Mountain Tourism Development Authority, and the Blount Chamber Foundation. During Bryan's tenure, Blount County has recruited over 85 new and expanding companies in the areas of research and development, corporate headquarters, manufacturing, and back office support centers. Listen to this. The total capital investment in these companies has exceeded $4 billion and created more than 15,000 direct new jobs with average wages above the Tennessee average. Bryan currently serves as the chairman for the International Economic Development Council. Most everybody knows that as IEDC, which is based in Washington, D.C., and is a member of the U.S. Chamber's Committee of 100, which guides the policy of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Bryan, welcome to RuralStrong.
Hey, Joe, appreciate you having me on, and honored to be with you and all the success you've had. That over the tenure I've known you, it's been pretty incredible to watch you work, and so proud to share a moment with you.
Well, Bryan, first of all, I gave the little intro. Tell our listeners about the Blount County Partnership and how your organization actually works.
Sure. So thanks for the question. So our organization is 105 years old. We're one of the oldest partnerships in the state. We started as a Chamber of Commerce in 1920, and over a variety of years, the community wanted to have more effect on its local economy. So the Chamber of Commerce lobbied its government leaders here to adopt the Industrial Development Board language, and they would do that in 1969 and created the Industrial Development Board. And about 10, 15 years later, we had two cities that would kind of battle each other, and the county would battle the city.
Surely not.
Yeah, imagine that in Tennessee. But the chamber acted as a facilitator, and we were able to get them to where they would unite in their economic development efforts and use the industrial board as the single economic development agency for the community. And by doing that, we're able to build business parks, do incentives for a variety of projects. And it doesn't matter where those projects land, because we've all agreed wherever they go, we're going to split property tax and sales tax together. So everybody's driven to be successful versus which jurisdiction it's in. I would say then in the late 70s, the chamber leadership wanted to foster more economic development in tourism, And so they would petition the county to enact a hotel motel tax, of which we operate the tourism authority, and the same thing goes that no matter what project we're working on, we are representing all the governments, and they split the tax dollars that's generated. So there is real propensity, the way we're welded together, that we collaborate and not compete. And then we've got a foundation that serves as a means of where people can be philanthropic toward initiatives that are borne by these three other entities: the Chamber, the IDB, or the Tourism Authority. We are a staff of 28 people, and of which we operate each one of those entities, those four entities. Each one of the entities has its own funding stream. They don't cross over. And then the Blount Partnership, if you will, is a fifth entity, and it's made up of the executive board of each one of those member entities: the chair, the vice chair, and the past chair of each one of those organizations. And it serves as the executive board that hires and fires the CEO. And then the CEO is directly responsible for staffing all the needs the partnership needs to have to manage those different nonprofits or government entities. So at any given time, 28 people may be working for the Chamber. At any given time, 28 people may be working for the Tourism Authority, the IDB. It really is what is set in motion that is needed. Of course, everybody has their propensity or their job, specifically what they do day to day. But the great thing about the partnership is no one really is siloed where they can't go over and help a fellow colleague. We're able to do this because we utilize timesheets like you would in an accounting firm or a law firm. And so as we work through our days, we're always keeping track of time and resources that are spent on an initiative, and those initiatives are tracked by all the boards. So it really fosters collaboration. It really fosters a true team environment, and it keeps those boards. Sometimes those boards, especially in rural Tennessee or rural America, those boards will want to compete with each other for resources. And by having them all welded together and then a shared staff, it helps keep that from happening. So I'm not going to say we're perfect at it, but it sure is a nice atmosphere to work in.
Well, as a partnership, and you know, through the years, Bryan, I've spoken to different groups, and I've always been a huge proponent of this type of structure for economic development. Tell our listeners, though, you know, one of the questions that always comes up is the funding for each of these entities that are under that partnership umbrella. Do they have their separate funding streams? Do they have their own bank accounts? How does that work?
Yeah, fair question. So there's 5 entities to talk about. Let's first start with the oldest, and that's the Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce lives and dies on membership fees that memberships it sells, and then also non-dues revenue, which is events and activities that it produces. It is 100% privately funded. There are no public dollars that go in to prop it up. Now, we do have governments that hold a membership, but they're not funding any more than anyone else would that has a membership. Now, our chamber has a tier due structure. And for your listeners, if they're a Chamber of Commerce and they have not adopted a tiers dues membership business model, I would strongly encourage them to do so. That is the future of the profession. And so, like I said, that's 100% funded, and it has its own bank account. The IDB, our second oldest, is 100% government funds. And our 3 governments, our county and 2 cities, 100% fund those efforts. I mean, it's a true economic development agency. And so they're not out trying to figure out how to raise funds or do events or capital campaigns to do their program of work. They're out hustling. The government's fully funded. And if your staff isn't having to try to figure out how to make ends meet, they can sure be a lot more nimble and more potent by focusing on what it takes to get business in your community or helping expand it. The Tourism Development, and it has its own bank account. The Tourism Development Authority, different entity, it's a government entity, and it is 100% funded by the hotel motel tax. We are the 8th largest destination in the state, so we get a fair amount of hotel motel tax revenue that comes through. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park, 1/3 of our entire county is taken up by the park. If you've ever been to Cades Cove, you know Blount County. We're also the home of the regional airport for the Knoxville region, so having that airport here, the military base, has a huge impact on us. But tourism, 100% public funds, hotel motel tax, all those dollars come to us, and we utilize that for marketing, but we also do capital projects with it. The Tourism Development Authority is a different animal. I can go into that later, but that's 100% funded. And then the foundation is all private funds, and they're really dictated by what initiatives each one of the boards want to take on and what companies or individuals want to donate to that. Now, the fifth entity, the Blount Partnership, that is the overall coordinating entity. It owns the staff. It petitions them out. It operates the 2 locations that we operate in this community, and it receives its funds from those 4 bodies we just mentioned, the Chamber, the IDB, the Tourism Authority, and the Foundation. And so with that, what it does is it looks at the timesheets. It looks at the successes and failures that have been had and resources spent on those things, and it will bill out those times, those utilities, those office operations to each one of the member entities based on those timesheets of, how much staff worked for the chamber on an event, or how much time the staff worked on recruiting an industry or a tourism event. And so those timesheets are the real linchpin in how we're able to monitor resources. And so, yes, it does receive public and private money, but they're truly billed at an at-cost model. So that's kind of how it operates.
And I would assume, Bryan, that by having all these entities housed together, you create a real synergy when it comes to economic development.
Oh, yeah, we actually compete larger than we are. Our normal competition that we go head-to-head with is Charlotte, North Carolina, or Cincinnati, or even Columbus, Ohio, is typically who our competition is. And we're nowhere near those population bases, but we can compete with them head-to-head because we're pulling resources between these entities to make it happen. Case in point, the Chamber of Commerce has a fund that is dedicated to economic development. Now, it's not anything that we have to operate day to day with the industrial board, but what it does do, these private funds that they'll send our way, it allows us to take maybe a recruiting trip, or we send plane tickets to a prospect that we want to really showcase the community. It pays for meals. It pays for whatever support that we need. And so it allows the public dollars to focus on what public dollars should be used for, but it allows us to compete with some of those private monies that we have to go head to head with those bigger communities. And so we couldn't have that if we weren't all engaged together. And there really is a sense of collaboration here, and you can feel it when you come in the office. There's a vibe here. There is an intensity here when you walk in the doors that's not Bryan Daniels saying that. That is members coming in saying it. You just get this vibe of there's activity alive in the community when you walk in the doors.
Well, I'll tell our listeners, the Blount Partnership is a model that folks should really look at, and tell our listeners, Bryan, that may not be from Tennessee. Blount County is sort of in a cradle of economic development there. Tell our folks geographically where you're located.
Yeah, so fair point. So we are the county, one of the counties most east of our state. We are in the Smokey Mountain chain. We are in the Knoxville MSA, which is right around 1 million people. For our community, we've got some great advantages. You've got the natural piece, the most visited national park in the entire country. 14 million visitors a year come through here. There are 3 gates in the national park, us, Gatlinburg, and then Robbinsville, North Carolina. And so, that in itself gives us a lot of flow through traffic. Our piece of that is about 6 million of that 14 million come through Blount County. But moreover, you've got the flagship university for the state, University of Tennessee. They've got part of their campus facilities and ag are over here. Downtown Knoxville from downtown Maryville, Alcoa is about a 15, 20-minute drive. So, we're really interlinked there. But you also have Oak Ridge National Labs that is based here within 15, 20 minutes also of Maryville, Blount County, Alcoa. So we're in a unique situation that you do have over research dollars, around $2 billion worth of research dollars come through our region, focused with DOE at Oak Ridge. You've got the flagship university here, but you also have other universities and community colleges like Mississippi State, Roane State, Maryville College are here. So there's East Tennessee State University's got facilities here. So you got a lot of higher ed that's here because of those installations, but then also the Tennessee Valley Authority's headquarters is parked right at our front door. So there's a lot of economic drivers that make this region very diverse for a litany of reasons.
And Bryan, I can only imagine a listener out there saying, wow, y'all have all these assets, and all these advantages. But wouldn't you say for rural communities that have an economic development program, they will have a chamber, they may have an arm that's tourism, doesn't combining these folks together in a rural area even make more sense?
It does. I mean, I'm as rural Tennessee can get. I'm a Upper East Tennessee, a guy from Greene County, Tennessee. Grew up on a farm, and I grew up in a community where the cities and the county fought, and it was usually over money or resources. We were just trying to keep law enforcement paid or trying to pay to get a road paved. I mean, when I was growing up, it was slim pickings, and quite candidly, with everything I just mentioned about Blount County, it's not been that long ago that Blount County was extremely rural too. We were a bedroom community of Knoxville, and you kind of picked up what you could get. We could have little one-off wins, but we didn't have the economic base that we do now to draw from. And so, the seeds were sown by our forefathers back in the 70s of collaboration. They saw, Alcoa, even today, Alcoa, the city, is only 10,000 people. The city of Maryville is only 40,000 people. Now, our county is 150,000 people. That includes those cities and county, but, we're not that big, but we compete with at such another other level because you don't have 3 industrial development boards. You don't have 3 or 4 chambers of commerce. You don't have 2 or 3 different tourism entities. And so by having it consolidated, your dollars go further and you can be more impactful versus worried about territorialism and control. And that's the biggest challenge a partnership has, especially in rural America, is your elected officials have got to be willing to give up some control of their office and allow a more collective narrative to encounter, to where 2 or 3 mayors have input, 2 or 3 city managers have input, or elected officials, however that needs to be. It's not one. And that is the biggest challenge of you have to get past the territorialism and really be pragmatic. But candidly, in this day and time, when money is in short supply, partnerships are the answer. I mean, why have 2 or 3 different entities? It doesn't have to be that way. And I can assure you, when a prospect comes to a community, they're not looking at jurisdictional border. They don't care. It's all about labor force. It's about infrastructure and speed to market. That's it. There is no other They don't care who's elected.
Is there a challenge, Bryan, in an organization like yours when political leaders leave office and you have new folks come in, or do they pretty much seamlessly fall into the transition into this partnership?
Oh, you have to guard it. I mean, we've in my tenure of 24 years in this organization, we continue to have to educate people that are new to politics of the partnership and why it works, because the norm is to be separate. The norm is to be territorial. But candidly, once they see the success, and we've got it all documented of here's what we've achieved, and it's because here's where the money's been spent and where the political capital's been spent, it's really hard for them to want to go against that. Now, we have had some mayors come in and want to blow it apart, and it is the electorate to decide if they're right or wrong. And so far, the community said, no, we like the partnership with the direction it's headed. We like the structure. Everybody's got a voice. We don't want to go backwards. We want to keep pushing forward. So, no, it is something that you have to protect and cradle, and it can evaporate on you if you're not careful.
Let me ask you this, Bryan. With your location in such a beautiful area there in the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains, how do you balance growth with those concerns about folks that don't want the growth?
Joe, there's no silver bullet. I will tell you, especially for Tennessee, being a low tax state, being a no income tax state, people from outside our state are moving here for a litany of reasons. It could be for employment, could be just to get away from whatever they're running from. But people are locating here, and as Tennesseans, we have to recognize that. I will tell you, I see more pushback of development and growth from the people moving here than I do see the natives. Now, I'm not whitewashing concern with our native citizens. They just want to make sure that if we are growing, we're growing the right way and we're not just being anywhere USA. And so as we develop out what we can control, business parks, the type of companies that come here, we're cherry picking. And moreover, we're trying to bring in companies that diversify our economy. We're not just throwing on the same type of skill sets we have. We're trying to create economic opportunities that diversify and give our kids opportunities here versus moving away. And for all of us as Tennesseans, we should be looking inwardly in our community and asking the questions of our high school students. That's where it needs to be, high school and even a little bit younger, of what's it going to take to get you to want to stay home? What kind of career is it? What kind of house do you want to live in that you would want to be here? Because it's far less expensive for us if we can keep our kids in our home communities, because they're vested in the future of the community. They know the culture. They know why things operate they do. Every community is unique. And if you can keep your kids, then you help solve your labor force problems. But as our kids want to move on because they're seeking something that's missing, could be a social aspect, those are the things that communities have got to grapple with, because it is very hard to assimilate people that don't have history or buy-in of your community of how it's structured. And so that's the biggest challenge we see in our state. But Tennessee is not immune to that. I mean, it's not just Tennessee, it's a variety of states are going through that. And so within IEDC, we're really pushing, especially in rural development, to try to engage your young students, your kids, into what are they looking for in their future. And that is your program of work of what you need to be focused on as a community.
Let me ask you, Bryan, how does the partnership, I guess, keep in touch with their community? And you've mentioned students. Do you do surveys? Do you do public meetings? How do you keep the pulse of the community?
Well, that's a big question. So there's a variety of ways we keep in touch. Number one, we actively engage our elected officials because it is the citizens that are sending those representatives to their local governments to represent their needs. So of course, our local and state officials are very much ingrained with us in our collaboration, our program of work development that we do. They're at the table with us. We actively utilize our Chamber of Commerce to get the business community in there. We actively use our tourism authority to do the same with the visitors that come through, with the feedback we get. And then we are very active in the school systems. We have a workforce development department. And those folks, like today's our 8th grade career fair, and all the students from our community, all the 8th graders are coming there to see all the businesses that we have and trying to expose them to the type of careers that are out there. And so with that, some parents come along. So you're listening to parents, you're listening to students of what they're interested in, what their feedback is. And for us as a community, we have over 200, and I think we're up to now 230. I think it's 230 different types of industries are here, and so many of those companies are represented as these 8th graders are trying to figure out what they want to do. So that's feedback that we get too. So it's a little of everything. We also do mailers out into the community of what's going on in the partnership, and people will let you know what they think on social media. So we have social media pages that we monitor. There's just a litany of ways that we get that feedback.
All right, Bryan, in the few minutes we've got left, for our listeners who are not that familiar with IEDC, and you're chairman of IEDC, tell our listeners
I am.
Exactly what IEDC is and how important it is to have professional training.
So thank you. So IEDC, as you said, stands for the International Economic Development Council. It is an entity made up of folks within the realm of economic development. So in that, you've got local leaders, local economic development professionals. You've got mayors, you've got governors, you've got senators, you've got heads of state. So IEDC represents 28 different countries in the world, of which, again, your economic development professionals, frontline elected leaders, whoever is involved in that organization, they are at the table when it comes to policy development between countries, on trade, truly the most impact is professional training, trying to raise a standard within the profession of these people understand economic development, and we even have a certification process to where communities, when they're advertising for professionals, they want to make sure they get a good, robust person with training. They require a CACD. That's the designation. It stands for Certified Economic Developer. And so that is universally accepted in the 28 countries for training. And we're in conversations with 3 more countries coming online to hold membership within IEDC. IEDC, we get involved in a lot of initiatives with different countries. And so you can look on our website under our research component, and you will see a toolkit in there that any practitioner can utilize that helps from how to create an industrial development board to how to create a workforce development program or a marketing program. What are areas of a lot of activity in certain business sectors? It's very comprehensive. You also have site consultants that are embedded in IEDC. And so if you're in the area of economic development, IEDC is the gold standard right now in the world. And there's a little over 5,000 members within IEDC.
And Bryan, there's a a step structure to get certified, and many states offer that basic economic development course, which is a requirement for our IEDC, correct?
It is correct. They do. And so there's a basic economic development course, and then many states now are doing state level courses for professionals to understand economic development at that state level, but those are only good in that state. Where IEDCs, it doesn't matter what state, county, or country you're in, it is the standard. And most of those economic development certifications that different individual states have are feeders and are sanctioned by IEDC.
Well, we're talking today with Bryan Daniels, the chairman of IEDC and one of the most successful economic developers in the country. Bryan, if we have a listener that would just like to follow up with you and maybe ask you more about your partnership and the structure, how could our listeners get in touch with you?
You can find us, the easiest thing to do is on the web. You can go to blountpartnership.com. That's BLOUNT, partnership, all one word.com. And our contact information is on there. So feel free to call or email, anything we can do to help. And then also you can go to IEDC's website, and our contact information is there also.
And if you've got any questions or comments for RuralStrong, we have an email. It's ruralstrong@gmail.com. Bryan, thanks for your time, and much continued success to you, my friend.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate everything you've done, and thank you for being a mentor in the profession.
All right, Bryan Daniels. Thanks for joining us on Rural Strong. If you found this helpful, share it, and follow the show for more insights from rural leaders making a real difference. Until next time, stay rural strong.